Okay, now let's look at some juvenile definitions that you need to be familiar with. Most of these you're going to be familiar with already. First of all, let's talk about what a juvenile is. And of course, we all know a juvenile is pretty much anybody who has not reached their 18th birthday, they're not married, emancipated. Now, of course, remember, emancipation, they have to have a court order from a judge saying that they can take care of themselves and provide for themselves and everything else. 25 years, I've never seen anybody emancipated. Or the person's a member of the armed services of the United States. So again, they have not reached their 18th birthday, they're not married, or they're not emancipated, or they're not a member of the armed forces, then you have a juvenile. Our next one is a delinquent juvenile. A delinquent juvenile is anybody who, while less than 18, but at least, let's back up there. Anybody while less than 16 years of age, but at least 6 years of age, they've committed a crime under state law or an infraction, just like anybody else. But the ages are between the age of 6 and 16. So in other words, a 5-year-old cannot be a delinquent juvenile. And that's because the thought process on that is a 5-year-old or somebody younger than 5 may not just have the mental capability of understanding necessarily the difference between right and wrong, whereas a 6-year-old should be able to, as the way that the state law looks at it. Then we have what we call the undisciplined juvenile. Well, an undisciplined juvenile is a juvenile less than 16, but again, at least 6 years of age, who is unlawfully absent from school or doesn't behave. They're regularly disobedient to their parents and actually beyond control of the parent or guardian or whoever the child's custodian is. Or is a child between the age of 6 and 16 who's regularly found in places where it's unlawful for a juvenile to be. Or they've run away from home for a period of time for more than 24 hours. Just undisciplined. A child that needs more discipline, some people would say. Now let's look at our 16 and 17-year-olds. Again, still talking about undisciplined juveniles. 16, 17-year-olds, their definition is someone who's regularly disobedient and beyond the disciplinary control of their parent or guardian or custodian, and or someone who is regularly found in places where an unlawful juvenile may be, or they've run away from a home more than 24 hours. And notice it's the exact same thing as the 6-year-olds to 16-year-olds, or one less than 16. So undisciplined is 17 years old all the way to 6, where your delinquent is less than 16. Think about it like this. Currently in North Carolina, we arrest 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds for crimes. And that makes them adults, or well, it's not adults, they're still juveniles. We just put them in our adult system. Delinquents, we do. Undisciplined, we don't, and they're 17 and less. Now moving on to court counselor. Exactly what is a court counselor? Well, first of all, the North Carolina General Statutes under Juvenile Code requires that a chief court counselor do actual juvenile intake services for any cases in their judicial district. This includes both delinquency and undisciplined cases. Now, this actual person has other responsibilities also. When it involves a juvenile, they basically get up there and they act as a magistrate in determining whether or not to issue a petition against the juvenile. They also get up there and decide whether or not to divert a case, um, and whether or not to place that child in a diversion program. Now, of course, you stop and think. We have some non-divertible offenses. They don't have any choice in those cases. Non-divertible offenses have to go on to court. But after a while, if it is non-divertible and they have a lot of issues with this child, and it continues and continues, sooner or later, even though the case may be divertible or the charges may be divertible, at some point the court counselor can move the case on further to the court system. They can make recommendations and decisions on whether to seek a secure custody order of the child or release them to the parent. And that's what I was talking about just a minute ago. You know, if working with the child is not working, the court counselor may just have to go ahead and seek a secure custody order and go to the court way about it. Now, if this child is placed on probation by the courts or whatever, the court counselor actually gets up there and acts as a probation officer for the child. But you know, the court counselor is familiar with this child's entire case from the beginning all the way through to disposition and even follow-up if the child's placed on probation. And then, of course, at the end of it, if the child does go on probation or whatever, the court counselor can get up there and issue a statement about the victim or for the court to consider. You know, so that's another responsibility of the court counselor. Now let's look at actual secure custody. Simply put, secure custody or the secure facility is actually an adult jail. You know, as law enforcement officers, we get secure custody orders. We get a secure custody order. We go pick up the child, and they end up wherever that order says they do. Pretty much adult jail. Now, temporary custody, more of you are probably familiar with. This is the actual taking physical custody of the child on a temporary basis. And, you know, this could be for anything, personal care of the child or supervision of the child until, you know, something can come up, whether or not it's a court order for secure custody or order for non-secure custody while the child can be placed in protective services or something. Now, as in any case whatsoever, eventually we have to have some kind of disposition, even though, you know, juvenile court's not the exact same as adult court. We end up having to have to dispose of the case. So, you know, a sentence is going to be come out of the case if it goes to juvenile court, and whatever that is. You know, it's either dismissed or it's continued. The child goes to secure custody, or he's put on probation, or some kind of agreements worked out. It's some type of disposition. And then, of course, the last definition you need to be familiar with is interstate compact. Interstate compact is an agreement that's ratified by all the 50 states and the District of Columbia. It provides a formal means of returning a juvenile who is an absconder, escapee, or runaway to the juvenile's home state. And the good thing about the interstate compact is the juvenile has to come back to his home state. You know, the compact does not allow or require inquiry by the responding state into the juvenile's best interest. The actual agreement basically gets up there and says the demanding state is in the best position to make the best interest determination of the child. So pretty much is if you all live here and y'all's child runs away, then and they go to another state seeking protection, they have no protection in that state. the only people that can make the protection is the state of North Carolina, and the state of North Carolina would have to decide on what's in the best interest